All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today on this Friday. I appreciate your patience as we ran into a few technical difficulties. So I wanted to, we'll get started, jump right in, introduce Marcus. So Marcus here is with us. He has a big degree experience in film. So he always knew where he wanted to be, and that was always on stage. So he's acted in over 100 stage plays and independent films, TV series, and commercials. He has co-starred in 28 feature films, Wild Side, featuring Christopher Walken. He's had cameo appearances in things such as Blade, Profiler, Diagnosis Murder, NYPD Blue, Murphy Brown, and The Practice. And his theater resume includes Pippin, Of Mice and Men, Othello, and Hamlet, in Grease, some of my favorites. Mm-hmm. So I won't go through his full bio. You probably saw it on LinkedIn, but I want to definitely give Marcus an opportunity. We're grateful that you're here, Marcus, to kick off. Before we get started, I do want to remind folks that we are recording. This will be put out onto LinkedIn, possibly Facebook. And so if you're not comfortable on camera, please feel free to go off camera. And then we will be saying afterwards if there's anything you want to share after we go off, after Marcus is done speaking today. Otherwise, we do a last Friday of the month recording as well, and those are not recorded. So this is a safe space we create for individuals to come, share their thoughts, and without further ado, I will kick it over to Marcus. Thank you for being here.
Well, you know what, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. Thank you for this opportunity. It's really, really a great chance for me to come and just tell my experiences about life and race relations in America and things of that nature, from where I came from, what I was about, what life is about as far as I'm concerned, and just going out. And I learned a long time ago, there was never really any obstacles in my life. You just set a goal, and the only time you should see an obstacle is if you take your eyes off your goal. So during the time when most of Hollywood was saying that there's a lack of diversity, there's a lack of this, I don't like to look at those things. I just see it as a challenge. I went out, got my own money, went out and made my own movie. And we shot it in 3 different countries. We shot it in Thailand, we shot it in the Philippines, and I did some pickup shots here in the States. So, and it's all about just finding out what it is you want to do, and just not, there's a new type of talent in Hollywood, and I think we should all understand that. And that talent is persistence. I watch a lot of people who are very talented fall by the wayside simply because they just give up. You just have to be the type of individual that just you refuse to stop, to give up. And that's what people tend to like. I was on a phone call not too long ago with the head of a major studio who said that I just got offered a distribution deal, a big one. And one of the comments that the guy made was that you're one of the few that have gone out and just done it. We have a lot of people that want to do things. They have ideas and it's all on paper, but very few people who go out and execute. And that's important. And it had a lot to do with my upbringing. I grew up in a place called Overtown, Florida, which has just recently been declared a historical landmark because it was a place where newly freed slaves had migrated from the South down to Miami, and they moved in a place called Overtown, and they were either newly freed or one generation removed. So, and the one thing that I learned when I was growing up Overtown, when I was young, we had, Miami at night was like downtown. We had our own theaters, we had our own barbershops, we had our own doctors, we had our own restaurants. And I was really young, and I remember there was a Chinese restaurant owned by this Chinese guy, but he sold chop suey plates, pork chop suey, and it was kind of pricey because he was a little more expensive than everybody else. And just to tell you my age, the price was 75 cents a plate, and people was losing. Everybody would lose their mind about it, So we had our own. We had everything. We had theaters. I live right next door to the Capitol Theater, and I used to walk by there, and that's the thing that everybody used to do. You know, we used to go to the movies every pretty much every Saturday. But I love the movies, and I love them so much. I used to go in there, and I didn't have the money to pay because it was 15 cents to get in the studio, get in the movie theater. And we used to, you know, as a kid, we used to beg. You know, we used to go out there and panhandle. Hey, mister, can I have a dime, or can I have a nickel or something like that? That's what we used to do as kids. And I was too young to throw papers, you know, because if you could throw papers, you can make money like that. So nobody had a paper route. The only thing we could do is go to a grocery store. And we used to go down to the store and tow people's groceries from the front door of the grocery store to their cars. And people would give you, I remember one time one night I made about, I think it was like 35, 50 cents, something like that. That was a lot of money back then. I mean, a quarter was king. That was huge. So we were very, very poor, but we had our own theaters, and you go get a haircut from Fifi's. Fifi was a hair barbershop that everybody went to. All the Black kids went to. So, but then systematically, it's funny because at the time you don't really see it, but they started shutting down certain places, especially after Martin Luther King died and there was a big riot. We didn't really burn or do anything. There was no rioting where we lived, but the establishment started shutting down the businesses in our area. And there was places that we used to walk to every day going to school, and they were building the freeway and things like that. And, you know, it was funny, we used to walk by and we used to dream about what we were going to be when we got older. And we used to walk by these stores and say, yeah, man, when I get older, I'm going to be a pilot, or I'm going to be an astronaut, and I always wanted to be an actor. And everybody, we used to always talk about, yeah, when we get older, and some people wanted to be a fireman. You know, it was a group of us, and we always moved in a group. We played football together. We did everything together. And then at some point, there was a store called Winn-Dixie QuickChek that opened up. And you don't even realize it. One day we go to our grocery store in our area, and it was closed. And then I was like, why would they close the store? And then my mom would say, oh, I don't know. So everybody in the neighborhood said, well, I guess we got to go to QuickChek. And QuickChek was a problem because you had to catch a bus to go to QuickChek. And then you had to shop. And then once you bought your food, you had to put everything in a cab. You had to get a cab. So not only did they take away your grocery store, but you had to leave your neighborhood to go to their neighborhood to purchase their foods in their stores, and then you had to employ their transportation just to get back home. And then things started systematically shutting down, and you never really realized that. And you go back home and you look at the whole neighborhood. And one of the trips at home, I was driving I had rented this really big SUV, and I was just riding through the neighborhood, and I'm looking, and I pull up to a stop sign, and I look down, and this guy, somebody said, Marcus, like that, you know, and I look down, and I'm looking at one of the kids, the Anthony brothers. There was these brothers in the neighborhood. They were like the Jackson Five. It was the Anthony brothers, Marvin, Stevie, Mike, Mick. They all had these big afros. All the girls loved them, and everybody knew that each one of them would be a huge success. And that's when it really crystallized it for me how the whole thing was shut down. And one of the things I wanted to say in this meeting today was that I'm not saying that you don't need white America or anything like that. That is far from the case. We all really need each other. But I think that we as Blacks should also look at the history and realize that all we really need is each other. If we start patronizing one another, if we start investing in one another, and it really can't start until first we have to, I don't know if you guys, a lot of people know of Malcolm X and they know of Martin Luther King, but people don't really understand the history. If you look at Malcolm was a militant when he first started out. Martin was a pacifist, but after they had went through the trials and tribulation of race relations and stuff, Malcolm had become more militant. And Malcolm had become more passive, and Martin had become more militant. You know, I mean, it was Martin Luther King who said that writing was the voice of the unheard. He would have never have said that. I did a lot of studying on Martin Luther King, you know, and I did a lot of studying on Malcolm X, and they both had very good views. But what I did like is they realized that we all need to come together. That's what Malcolm was doing at the end. He was putting together a coalition, and he wasn't excluding white America. He said that he's just including Black folks so that we could understand that we need to move together, how we could come together. And I see that Overtown was just one of the things that reflected the same thing that happened in Rosewood, the same thing that happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had our own. And once you have your own and you start building your own history, you have your own economic wealth, well, people tend to respect you. They tend to include you. And that's I had a very fascinating life. I was very poor. I had befriended these two brothers, these two Black kids that went to my school, David and Kevin Wilson. Well, it turns out that their father ended up being a big star, Mr. Flip Wilson. And we were such good friends that every summer they would leave and go to California. And this one particular summer, I think I was about 11 years old, 11, 12, they had left that Wednesday or Thursday. And I was sitting at home on a Saturday. It was raining, so I couldn't go outside and play. And I was watching baseball. I hate baseball. I was sitting there on a Saturday. It was raining outside. Baseball was on the TV, and the phone rings. And so I pick up the phone, and it's David. He said, Marcus. And I'm like, David, you're back? And he was like, no, man, I'm calling you from California. Now, keep in mind, a phone call from California was probably something like $20 a minute. It was a very expensive call. It was unheard of. And he said, hey, man, somebody wants to talk to you. And I said, who? He said, hold on. And then David's dad picks up the phone. He said, hey, buddy. And I said, hello? And he said, this is Mr. Flip Wilson. And I said, yeah? And he said, hey, I just want to know, the boys were here. The boys and Tammy, the girls, they've been talking about you a lot. And I was saying to myself, well, who is this kid? Why is it that my kids are crying for this kid that I don't know? And I said, yeah. And so he said, have you ever been to California? And I said, I've never been anywhere. He said, so who do you live with? I said, I live with my mom. And so he said, is your mom there? Can I talk to her? And I said, yeah. So I'm running around the house looking for my mom. And back then we only had one phone, but it had a long cord. And the cord reached all the way into the bathroom. My mom was giving my brothers and sisters a bath. And I ran in and I said, Mama, Flip Wilson on the phone. He wants to talk to you. And my mom like, what? Hello? What? You ain't no Flip Wilson. And she hangs up the phone. I'm like, Mom, that was Flip Wilson. She was like, boy, ain't no Flip Wilson calling you. What would he be doing calling you? And she knew that we were friends, but she didn't know the really the intensity of the friendship, you know? So I'm standing there, Mama, you just hung up on Flip Wilson. She was like, boy, I don't want no Flip Wilson. Get out of here. I got to give your brother and your sisters a bath, you know? So then as I was taking the phone back, it rings again. So I pick up the phone and I said, hello. He said, I guess we got cut off. He said, let me speak to your mom. So he's talking to my mom. I take my mom back the phone and she starts talking. And just the facial expression changed on my mom, going from what? You know, just that piece of, you know, just that visual of seeing that happen. And then he said, I want you to come to California. There's a flight leaving at 3 o'clock. Can you be to the airport at 3 o'clock? And I said, yeah, because it was about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning there, and I knew worst case scenario, we'd have to get some of the neighborhood. So the whole neighborhood found out that I was leaving. So all of a sudden, this caravan of everybody started showing up to take me to the airport. And so we all get to the airport, and he told me, he said, when you get there, just go up to National Airlines, was his airline. He said, just go to the counter and tell them that you're Flip Wilson's son and you need a ticket to come to California. it'll happen. So I didn't even think about the details. You know, I was like, okay, so we got together, threw a whole bunch of clothes in the luggage and the suitcase and stuff. And so this whole caravan, about 20 cars, are on their way to the airport. So we get to the airport and we pull up at the top. And at that time, you know, you can get out and leave your car right there on the sidewalk. You know, it wasn't like it is today. You can just leave your car and go in and do whatever you had to do. So we get in, and I run up to the ticket counter, and I say to the lady, "I'm Flip Wilson's son." He said, "There's a plane leaving at 4 o'clock going to California. I need a ticket." And she said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Flip Wilson's son." She says, "What's your name?" I said, "Marcus Daniels." She said, "It's not Wilson?" I said, "No, ma'am, but he said that there's a ticket there for me," and da-da-da-da-da. So we're going back, and she's typing away, and she goes, "I don't see him." She goes, "I'm sorry, son, you don't have, there's no ticket here for you. There's nothing. I don't even, there's no Flip Wilson and Mr. Wilson. I know of him, but there's nothing here for you." So now I turn around, and all the people that came down with me to the airport are standing behind me, probably about maybe 50 people or more, and they're all looking at me, and you know, and I was crying. And I said, okay. And my mom was like, okay, so we'll go home. So we started heading out. And as we're walking away, the phone rings. And the lady picks up the phone and she goes, yeah. No, he's right here. And she said, "Young man, come here. And then I turn around and she goes, yeah. And she stepped, and so she hangs up the phone, she starts typing. Then all of a sudden, a cart drives up, a go-kart. And the guy goes, you're not gonna make the flight. You gotta jump on right now. So I jump on this. I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye to everybody. And we left, and I get to the thing, and I get on the plane. I'm in first class. I didn't know anything about class, first and second. We got in, they shut the door, and I'm in the first class by myself, and it must have been like maybe 6 or 7 stewardesses that played cards with me, gave me whatever I wanted to eat all the way to California. And I say that to say, when I arrived, when I first walked off the plane, the very first thing I noticed was everybody was Asian. I had never seen that many Asians. I hadn't even seen that many white people. You know, it was a huge, like a cultural shock for me. And then all of a sudden I saw Kevin and David stick their head around the corner and say, "Marcus." And I said, "What's up?" I was like, and I was running down the thing. I had my luggage and stuff. He said, "Come on, because Pops they're attacking Pops." And then Pops comes around the corner. He's running, they're pulling off. He had no shirt on. He just had on a gold thing that said Flip Wilson with a diamond on the eye for Flip. And then he said, "You ready?" So he grabs my luggage, and we're running through the airport. And we get there, and his car is on the side of the top of the thing. And on the top, when you run out of the airport, his car is right there, and the police are there watching the car and everything, and they let us in. And it's a convertible Rolls Royce. And I jump inside, and then, you know, I get in there, and I'm looking, and it was the one other thing I noticed, that it was very cold. I was freezing, and it was daylight. It was, you know, it was just a huge temperature change. And then we were riding down the street, and then we get to the coast, and it got really cold. And then Mr. Wilson said, "Hey, Marcus, you like my car?" And I kid you not, this is exactly what I said. I said, I looked around, I said, "Oh, it's okay, it's nice. It ain't no Cadillac." And he starts laughing. And that's where my education began, of being a man, of being aware, of being conscious that, you know, slavery is not over because a bunch of black folks woke up one day and said, "We're not picking cotton." Slavery's over because a lot of white people that didn't like it, that didn't want it, they jeopardized their lives, their livelihood, the lives of their children, their families, to end it. And I think that's what America is really seeing right now. There is a portion of the population, they're just loud. That's it. They're louder than everybody else. But the core of America is, I mean, I can't begin to tell you, I literally went from rags to riches overnight. After we moved in, when I first moved into the house with Pops, and it was Kevin, David, and Pop said, "Hey, go to your room, show him the room." And when I get up to the room, it's this large room, but in the room was only 2 beds. And David said to me when we walked in, he says, "Well, I guess we'll just have to sleep on the floor." And so we all slept on the floor. And I can't begin to tell you, we had so much fun. I would go to bed, we would be laughing so hard, I would wake up in the morning and my eyes were sealed closed, you know, from the tears that when they get really, really cold, they stay closed. And that was weird for me. And I had to wake up every morning and really wash my face to get my eyes to open and stuff. And then probably like a week later, we were walking down the beach, and who's sitting on the beach by themselves in the dirt? Michael Jackson. He's just sitting there. I'm like, and my brother was like, hey, Mike, This is my brother Marcus came from Miami. I'm living with Flip Wilson, then I'm here with Michael Jackson, and that's where, I mean, it just started at that point. And I started seeing a different part of life. And then we were sitting there, and because I play guitar, I had my guitar with me. Me and Michael, we're sitting there, and we became good friends because I was playing Puff the Magic Dragon. Can you believe that? Me and Michael Jackson. And the first thing I said to Mike, I can't believe I can't believe I'm sitting here with you playing Puff the Magic Dragon. And then he goes, oh, here comes somebody. And we looked down the beach, and two other people, black people, were coming, because that's how it was in Malibu. It's probably still like that today. And he goes, oh, that's Jermaine and Chappie. Jermaine? Oh my God. And that's where, I mean, this is literally how it was. And then we were hanging out, and we became good friends, and we hung out all the time. And I became very close. Jermaine and I have become, we were brothers. We were very much brothers. And I know this is more about race relations, so I don't want to get too far off topic. But the one thing that I will say is this. I met a lot of people who did a lot of incredible things. I think that we as a whole race of people have sold ourselves short by not really investing in one another. When I wanted to do my film, and I mean, it was really tough. I started acting, and I would go on auditions, and I would go, and nobody knew about my relationship with the old man. I did Murphy Brown, and we were sitting at the table read, and it was a co-starring role too, by the way. But I'm sitting there with Lily Tomlin, Candace Bergman, and we're all sitting there, and we're on the table reading. Garrett, this big comedian, I forgot his name, I forgot his last name, Garrett something. And we were all doing the scene together. And then Lily Tomlin looks at me, and she says to me, she goes, wow, you're very talented. How come I've never heard of you? I said, that's funny, Miss Tomlin, because I remember you as a child. And everybody at the table took a step back and was like, what? And I said, I remember when you were doing the Flip Wilson show, and you were in the big rocking chair, and you was doing the thing. And I said, and the funniest thing that I really used to love that you did, she did this in dramatic interpretation where she played all the characters of a girl that was in college, and she had a boyfriend, and the guys was coming, and she turned around, and she played all the characters, standing up, doing the one thing. And I was just fascinated. And she goes, oh my God, who are you? And I told her that I was a ward of Flip Wilson, that I was adopted, that I was on the show, I was on the set on those days. And, you know, the first thing they want to do is start verifying, you know, everything. So they did their due diligence and found out that I was who I was. And they were really surprised because I never used Pop's name to do anything. I never used his, for Pops. He always, you know, unfortunately, when he spoke, his kids really, they listened, but they didn't really listen. I listened to each and every word. And Pop's thing was, America was a great country. Not was, but is a great country. I say was because in the past tense, he's since passed away. But he said that you just put your mind to do whatever it is you want to do. You know, I remember when we used to travel together, and when we would fly to, we would go to Vegas, and we did a show. We did shows together, and Pops put us in the show, and we were going to, we were working on a show together, Pops, Kevin, and myself. And Pop said, yeah, Marcus, listen, Engelbert Humperdinck got a sore throat. So they're asking me to to do his contract, to finish out his contract at the MGM Grand. So we open Friday. And you get that call on a Tuesday. So Pops threw together a little show, and we were the opening of the show. So I was opening at the MGM Grand. And we did the same thing at Caesar's Palace. I was about, at that time, I was about 15, 16, something like that, opening at Caesar's Palace with Flip Wilson. And then one week we would do Caesars, or another time we would do MGM, but it was always those two. We did do the Sands a couple of times as well, you know. But I used to see everybody, man. Every star you ever want to think of, I met them. Elvis, we spent dinner with Elvis. Mr. Presley was very nice. I saw Colonel Tom Parker later. And you know, the funny thing is, I used to have a camera. Pops gave me a camera as a gift. And then he got upset with me because I was always taking pictures. And he goes, Marcus, you know, everybody has an image. And whenever you pick up that camera, everybody starts getting nervous because their image is at, you know, it's at risk. And I would say, but you bought me the camera. He goes, yeah, I know, but you got to know when to use it and when not to use it. And I was like, oh, okay. So, but there were certain people, like I took a picture of me and Michael. I wasn't going to let that go. I had pictures of me and Elvis. I got pictures of me and Colonel Tom Parker, who was Elvis's. I had pictures, you know, Saddam Hussein came to Malibu. I never forget that night they said, yeah, this Saudi Arabian prince is going to be giving a big party down on the beach in Malibu. And they had the whole beach. And I went out and I took pictures. But because of Hurricane Andrew, because when I went into the military, I had all these photos in photo books. And I had them down in Florida, and I had them in my mom's shed. And Hurricane Andrew came through and ruined a lot of the pictures. So a lot of the pictures got ruined. Some of them have water stains, but I have a lot of them. I lost a picture with me and Saddam. I lost a picture with me and Elvis, but I still have a good picture with me and Colonel Tom Parker and things of that nature and stuff. But it's funny that I would talk with everybody about race relations, especially here in America. When I did my film, Kung Fu Brother, Jackie Chan had saw it, and I was going to do the film. We were going to do another film, and I was set to direct it for Weinstein Asia, a company called Dragon Dynasty. And Jackie Chan saw the film, and they wanted Jackie Chan's son to be in the film, so they flew me to Hong Kong to meet with him. And they said, well, Marcus, if we ask Jackie to put his son in the movie, it's probably going to cost us $20 million. But if I put you in a room with Jackie and you ask him, it may only cost us $1 million. I said, okay. So I flew to Hong Kong, and I went and I sat with Mr. Chan in his home, very, very nice guy. And we talked about race relations. That's all we talked about. We didn't talk about no movies, no nothing. We talk about race relations. And Jackie, at the end of the night, Jackie was saying to me, he was like, you know, next time you come to my place. You stay here at my house. And I said, okay, thank you, Mr. Chan. He tried to get me to stay, but my wife was pregnant at the time with my daughter, and she was going through so many problems with my youngest daughter that my wife and I are very close. And she said, you better be on that plane, because if you ain't on that plane, I'm not going to be here when you do get here. And I was trying to explain that to Mr. Chan, and he just would not take no for an answer. But the core that we all share, that we all have, I've been with the richest, most famous people, I've been with the wealthiest, and they all say the same thing, that we're all equal. And I've seen people try to do the right thing. I've seen people consistently. And, you know, it doesn't even take, we don't have to be Oprah Winfrey. We don't have to be Tyler Perry. We don't have to be Flip Wilson. Just you. Pops told me, he said, don't really try to change the world. He said, change yourself and your world will change. And I'd be darned if he wasn't right. Everything that the first lesson he told me, he said, we were on a plane on our way to Vegas, and he said to me, he was looking at my clothes because I came from the projects. And this is how the whole thing started. He said to me, I was saying to him, he was telling me his boots cost like $100. That was a lot of money, a lot. I would never pay $100 for a pair of boots. I don't care who made them. They were ostrich. And I said, you paid $100 for them, and look at these shoes I got on. They're brand new, leather, they were $5. And he said, yeah, I saw those shoes. And he said to me, he said, let me ask you a question, Marcus. He said, if you could buy a pair of pants for $100, or you could buy 10 pair for $100, which one would you buy? I was like, And I bought 10 pair for 100 before I spent 100 on one pair. He said, yeah, but did you know that that one pair for $100 will last longer than all 10 of those pairs that you have? And I said, wow. And then I said to him, he said, so what do you think about that? I said, I just got to figure out how to get that how to get that $100 pair of pants, but for $10. And he started laughing. And we started really forging a real kinship, And as soon as we got back to LA, I came home one day, and because we went to school, I came home, all my clothes that I brought from the projects in Miami were gone. Everything, gone, burned, gone, in the trash can. And I was about to cry. And Pop said, he came in there, he said, yeah, I had Christina, the maid, I had her throw everything away. And I was like, so what am I gonna wear? And then he said, Betsy Kahn, Betsy, who's the secretary, she's gonna take you to Rudnick's in Beverly Hills. I had never really heard of Beverly Hills other than the Beverly Hillbillies. I was like, Beverly, what is that, Beverly Hills? I thought it was a woman, Beverly, that lives in the hills. I had no fathom. And we went through there, and he spent $5,700. They bought everything from shoes to socks to underwear to shirt to suit to tuxedo, everything, a whole complete line. And the guy that sold me my shoes was Philip Morris. Philip Morris, now the actor? At the time, he was Greg Morris's son from Mission Impossible. That's the one thing I remembered about it. But he's the one that put the shoes on me and fitted me up and did everything. He was working at Rudnick's at the time, so I know he's older than me. But $5,700, a brand new Toyota at the time, brand new, was about $2,700. So I started learning about economics. I started learning about where to spend money, how to be smart with it, and things of that nature. And so I would say that I met a lot of great people. I've seen how it works. And what happened, I want to go back a little. At the Capitol Theater, they shut the Capitol Theater down. And I never could understand why they would shut it down, because everybody went to the Capitol Theater. I saw every movie that you probably ever want to see. I saw Shaft there, Night of the Living Dead. I remember when the Night of the Living Dead came out, they had a nurse in the lobby because people were fainting. So every movie theater that had Night of the Living Dead had to have a registered nurse in the lobby. And that registered nurse was taking care of everybody. And there were people that were falling out, and then the ambulance would come. And back then, the doctor came with the ambulance. So when the ambulance showed up, we used to call it the ambulance. When the ambulance showed up, the doctor would get out of there and he would diagnose you, and they would put you in the car and take you. When they shut the Capitol Theater, they forced us out of our neighborhood into a place called Northside. Northside was the big theater, and it was like two theaters in one. It was the first multi-theater, multiplex. But what it was is it was in a white neighborhood. So you had to leave the black neighborhood now, again, go into the white neighborhood. You can see the movies, and you paid more than what it cost at the Capitol. And then as soon as the movie was over, you had to get your mind back on the bus and get back over on that side of town. So I systematically watched them shut down our neighborhoods, and then we just didn't have anything. The money that came into our neighborhoods used to circulate 6 to 7 times before it left. We don't have that now. We have no ownership or anything, of anything. And a lot of it has to do with our mentality. We have some bright spots across America. I remember there was a group of black folks somewhere in Atlanta that got together and used their food stamps to start buying food, and they started a grocery store eventually. And then I just heard that there's another black family down in Atlanta that just purchased 90 acres. 90 acres. They have a sort of place where black folks can migrate and live and, congregate peacefully, And I'm not saying it to say that we need to segregate ourselves. I'm saying that we need to learn our own self-value. And only then, when you know the value of who you are, can you go out and show empathy to another. You really have to be able to look at another man or a woman and say, and be sincere about it and say, hey, nice dress. Or say to a guy, nice hat. I do that all the time. Nice suit. Hey man, nice suit. Oh, nice shoes, nice tie. And it's gotten so foreign now that people think you're gay. I say something to a brother, hey man, I like that shirt or suit. Yeah, man, I'm not gay, man. Yeah, neither am I, you know. And even with women, you said to women, da 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 da, you have to be careful, man. It's like, I thought you was married. We have to get back to the basics. We have to get back to being who we are and continue doing, because this is a great country. I've been in every state in this country. Every state, every major city. I've been so many places in this country. And I'm telling you, I was driving cross country and my car broke down in Eufaula, Texas. And I was on my way back to, I was leaving Vandenberg Air Force Base. I was transferring over to Clark Air Base in the Philippines. And I was driving my car cross country. I was gonna leave my car at Jermaine's house, of all people, while I was over in the Philippines. And the car broke down in Eufaula, Texas. And I only had $100 in my pocket. But I had money, but I just only had $100. This guy, Southern Texan guy, picked me up, towed my car back to his garage. The part that I needed was a solenoid for the starter. He said, hey, listen, I'm gonna make a run to Houston, so I'll pick up the part for you. The part was $100. Now, I could give him the money for the part, but I had no more money like for a hotel or anything like that. It turns out his sister owned the hotel. He owned the mechanic shop. He drove all the way back, bought the part, came all the way back, had his sister put me in her hotel room. She would only take $20 from me, and I had a place to spend the night, and he fixed the car and everything like that, and I tried to give him the money. He said, well, if you give me the $100, do you have anything else for gas? And I said, no. He said, so how are you gonna finish your trip? Just take it. He said, just when you need to help somebody, and remember, Eufaula, Texas. I will never forget it. These are the kind of stories that we have in America that makes America great. These are the kind of things that we need to do. We need to just start patronizing amongst ourselves where we can build up our wealth, and then we can start mingling. You know, we can start migrating. We can start integrating with others and other cultures and other people, and do it in a way where we have our own. Because, you know, God bless the child that has his own. I'm sure you heard those little cliches. One thing Martin Luther King said, it was Martin Luther King that said that, I was just reading a quote of Martin, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, God doesn't really care about Black people's freedom. God cares about all of our freedom, that we all live together, that we all, no, he said white supremacy, Black supremacy is just as bad as white supremacy. Neither one are good. God doesn't really care about just the Black man. He cares about all the men, that we all live together under one roof as brothers. That came from Martin Luther King. I was really, really surprised. So Martin had become a little bit more militant, and he was telling us what we needed to hear. And truth has no friends. Truth does not have a friend. So you have to be the kind of individual where you have to have it in your heart. I think my greatest accomplishment in my life is my wife and my kids, my family. We are so close. It is so much different than the way I was raised. It really is. And I love it. My daughter, who is 10 years old, she came to me. We went to Greece last year. We had a wonderful time. We went to Greece. We went to Rome. We went from Greece to Rome, from Rome to Barcelona. My wife wanted to go to that church they've been building for 100 years. And then from Barcelona, we went to Amsterdam. And then we came home. And my 10-year-old daughter came to us one night. We were back. I was so tired. And she goes, Mom, Dad, I just want to say that I want to thank you for the life that you provided me. I am so blessed and happy that I'm your daughter. And I looked at her, I said, who the hell's in that brain? Who is in there? Who's really in there? 10 years old telling me that. But it's such a great feeling when when you hear things like that, my wife said to me one day, she said, honey, you're my best friend in all the world. You're my best friend. And I'm telling you, in this world, it don't get no better than that. When you're doing the right thing, it's a good feeling. The only wealth, truly, the only wealth that you're ever going to accumulate is the wealth that you give away. That is it. So if you really want to bank your wealth, you really want to have it, share it. You know, I'm not saying give all your wealth away or do anything like that. Look at Warren Buffett and those guys. They're giving away half of their earnings. There's a reason for it, because they've reached to a plateau where they realize that even if you accumulate it all, you know, it's no fun. It's no fun if you don't have a friend, a wife, or someone to share it with. It's lonely at the top. I love Mr. Wilson. I love that man so much, you know, and when he passed away, before he passed, my brother David got in a motorcycle accident. He's paralyzed from the neck down, David Wilson. And I used to go and visit him every weekend, you know. And Tamara, Flip's other kid, came and picked me up. And she said, Dad wanted me to let you know that he really wished his sons, Kevin and David, were just a fraction of the man that you turned out to be. And I just broke down crying. I really did, because I didn't have anything. I wasn't rich. I wasn't none of those things, but I had manners, you know, and I didn't have anything to offer this man. I really didn't, but he was so kind to me. He really was. He showed me that the world itself is a reflection of who we should be. Even if we don't see ourselves, we have to go and give to one another. That is what it's about. Our pops used to go out, and no matter what. One time we were on the golf course, and Evel Knievel came to Pops and said, hey, where's that $100 you owe me? And Pops said, I don't owe you $100. Evel said, yeah, I know. Times it's tough. Evel Knievel said that to Pops. Pops reached in his pocket and gave Evel $5,000 right there. And Evel started crying and gave Pops a huge hug and said, thank you, Flip. Thank you. That's the kind of man Pops was. Pops was, I just got one funny story to tell you. One time, Pops used to bank at Barclays Bank in Malibu. And he always kept at least like $5,000 in his pocket. But one day he ran lower than $5,000, and we went to the bank, and Pop said, I mean, some people may find it funny, some may not find it funny. I thought it was funny as hell. Pop said, we went up to the ticket counter, and Pop said to the lady, he said, yeah, I want to take out $50,000, no, $25,000, something like that. And the lady said, okay. So she starts typing away, and she goes, Mr. Wilson, I'm sorry, but you don't have $25,000 available. And Bob said, what? She goes, you just don't have $25,000. He was like, the fuck out of here. She's like, Mr. Wilson, you don't use that kind of language with me. How dare you? And Bob said, you know what? Get the president over here. And so the president comes over. She goes and talks to the president of the bank. At the time, it was the president, and she's talking to him. And he's looking, and he starts saying stuff. He comes over there, and he goes, is there a problem? He says, yes. She told me that I don't have $25,000. And the bank goes, the fuck is wrong with you? He reached in the and pulled out $25 and gave it to the old man. Pop said, that's more like it. And we walked out of the bank. I saw him do things that we were riding down the street one day in Malibu. Pop said to me, he said, Marcus, you ever been to Hawaii? I was like, no. He keep asking me if I've ever been to these places. This is the only place I've ever been. He does a U-turn right in the middle of the street on Pacific Coast Highway. We pull over to the telephone, the pay telephone. He calls the airline and says, yeah, you guys got a flight? I'm on my way. He used to call himself HNIC, head nigga in charge. I'm on my way, HNIC, I'm on my way. And he'd hang up. They held the plane till we got there. And when we got there, He left the car on the side of at the top. He just parked it and left it. And he said, you can't leave your car there. Pop said, oh no, I can leave it there. He said, no, you can't. He said, yeah, I'm gonna just leave it there. He said, they're gonna tow it. He goes, I know. And they're gonna take care of it until I get back. And then we went to the plane and we get on the plane and then he starts going through the aisle. And sure enough, the plane's waiting on him. And he gets there, he goes through and starts autographing and thanking everybody for waiting on him. And we get on the plane and we sit there. Nobody can do that now. Nobody can hold a plane. He did things that I just didn't see.
Hey, Marcus, I'm sorry to interrupt. You are such a fantastic storyteller. We are coming up to the hour, but we have a couple of questions if you had a moment and if people can stay around to listen. So the first question we have here is, it says, what is preventing racism to end today? Is it that too many white people don't care or realize about its presence and impact because everyone is focused on themselves?
I think that race relations is always going to have those little caveats. It's just how it is. And it has to do with the one thing that I should have touched on. The one thing that we don't have, that we're lacking, is education. We're not educating folks. Folks aren't going to schools. And when they get there, they're only there for PE and lunch. And that's unfortunate. It's always going to be there because there's always going to be differences. The conundrum is that the differences of us is what makes life unique. But those that can't respect or appreciate the difference, they tend to want to use it for an excuse of their personal failures in life. You know, when a guy can't feed his family, he looks for reasons. He gets mad, he just comes up with these reasons, and they always jump on, a lot of the times, I shouldn't say always, but the majority of the times they want to jump on immigrants, taking their jobs. And that's not necessarily the case. A lot of people just don't do the right thing and they end up in a position, you know, when you're looking at life itself, you have to look not in the now, you got to look at where you want to be. You don't make decisions based on where you're at right now. You should make decisions on where you want to be. And that's what people aren't doing, and people aren't educated and they don't understand really how it really works. So they have to really understand that, you know, if you want to go somewhere, you want to do something, then you have to gravitate towards that particular. When I wanted to be an actor, someone said, well, if you want to be an actor, you know, what you have to do is you have to do things that actors do. You got to go to class, you got to go study, you got to read plays, you got to do plays, you got to go on auditions, and then eventually you'll wake up one day and you're an actor. And that's exactly how it happened. I'll never forget the first film that I starred in, a movie called Full Contact. I woke up one day and I was like, wow, I'm an actor. And that's how it happens. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that sort of guidance, you know, so it's always going to be there. It's just something that you have to learn how to navigate, how to circumvent, to get around it and not allow it to be a part of. It's like when you see a pothole in the street, you know, do you run over it? No, you just try to get around it so it doesn't ruin the shocks on your car. So any other questions?
Yep, we've got another one here. Mm-hmm. It says, so I'm curious how your experience of discrimination were different or similar from the military versus an entertainer with Flip.
When I first went into the military in the Air Force, I was in tech school. I was an air traffic controller, and we were stationed at Biloxi, Mississippi. There were Klansmen all around, and I'll never forget, we were having a barbecue one day, and we had a staff sergeant that was in the group with us, you know, young airmen and stuff. And when I finally got to the barbecue, in order to be at the barbecue, everybody had to chip in like $20, which was a lot of money, you know. And so I chipped in my $20, and when I got to the barbecue, I was barely able to get one burger. That was it, for $20. And I was nursing the burger on the grill. I was sitting there nursing it, and putting it on there. And this staff sergeant, white guy, came by and snatched my burger. I said, hey, what are you doing? He goes, I'm with the, I'm in the military, but I'm with the United States Klansmen, like that. It's like, what? He said, that's right. I went to my commander. I marched in there in basic training, in tech school. I was at Keesler Air Force Base. I walked into, it was a colonel's office. I walked in, I took off my shirt. I said, I want out. He said, excuse me, Airman? I said, I want out. He said, I don't mind court-martialing you. He said, but why do you want out? What happened? I told him what happened, what this guy said to me, that he was with the Klan, and he's in the military, and da-da-da-da. He said, really? I said, yes, sir. He put on his hat. He said, put your shirt back on. Put on my shirt. We go out there. Point him out to me. We walked over there. I said, that's him right there. Colonel said, this airman said that you did such a thing. And the guy was kind of drunk too. He goes, yes, sir. He's standing at attention. Yes, sir. He said, did you do intake? Yes, sir. Did you say this? He hesitated. He said, yeah, I said it, like that. Colonel says, okay. The colonel had called the SPs. They walked him to the gate. They took a razor and took his stripes off right then and there and kicked him off base, and you're no longer in the military. That's what I was known for when I was in the military. After that, that colonel to this day has no idea how he changed my whole view of the United States military. The Air Force wasn't having it. I can't speak about the other services, but the Air Force wasn't having it. With Pops, one night we arrived at a hotel, and Pops was always, trying to downplay his presence, So he had on his hat, and he had his head down and walked up to the person at the desk. And Pops never had a reservation either. So he goes there and he goes, yes, and on his credit card it's Cleroy Wilson on his American Express. He had always had American Express. And he said, and the guy goes, yeah, well, I'm looking, we ain't got no rooms. And Pop said, you don't have no rooms? I called and there was rooms. And the guy goes, we ain't got none, like that. And somebody was walking by and the woman said, oh my God, you're Flo Wilson. And Pops looked up and he said, yes. And she goes, oh, can I get an autograph? Can I get an autograph? And so he gives an autograph and the guy's looking at Pops. Now he knows who he is. And then he says, oh, I think I could find you a room, Mr. Wilson. And Pop said, I don't want to be here now. Thank you very much. Give the room to someone else. And we walked out and we left and we walked down the street to another hotel. And it was a different vibe. Pops used to encounter racism, but he would always circumvent it. And he would not hold other people accountable for their actions. He was not that kind of guy. And whenever somebody called him the N-word or something like that, he'd say, well, that's Mr. Nigga to you, like that. And then he just keep on moving. And I have a different take on that, I'm trying to get where he's at or where he was. But that's the kind of person he was. We are, I was with, you want to hear some racism? We were on the beach, like I told you, with Michael Jackson. We were on the beach, and there's a piece of the beach in Malibu called the Cove or the Park or something like that. And we were all there playing, and the guy comes down and says, yeah, y'all, this is a private beach, and we don't want no black people on the beach. And then Michael looks up and he says, oh, okay, we'll leave. And we were with Brooke Shields. And Brooke Shields said, she says, why'd you leave the beach? And Michael said, the guy said he didn't want no black people. Brooke went down there and she cursed Brooke Shields cursed that guy out. This was the time, no, I'm sorry, not Brooke Shields. It was Tatum O'Neal. I'm sorry. Tatum O'Neal went down there and cursed the guy out. Tatum cursed, because at the time, Tatum and Ryan, they lived on the beach too. And Michael and Tatum was sort of like, she liked him and he liked her kind of thing. So Michael was only down there because he liked her, and whenever she would come out or whatever, when she came home, she would come out and they would hang out down there. But Ryan, her father, was very racist. I used to play football with the Bo Bridges brothers, Jeff and Bo. We used to throw the football all the time. Their father, we were in the house one time. Jermaine was playing the music for his next album, and it was loud, but we were on the beach. It was, you know, the waves are louder. And there's a guy banging at the door, turn that shit down. And it was Lloyd Bridges. You don't want me to come in there and just tear this whole house up. Lloyd Bridges. And Bo and Jeff was like, hey man, that's my dad. You know, I'm so sorry. He would apologize. And I was like, hey, no problem. You know, I ain't afraid to say it. Lloyd used the N-word. Sure did. Ask Jermaine, he'll tell you. So we did encounter it a lot. The biggest encounter, the last story I want, well, not the last, but the last story I want to say is this is how Jermaine and I became good friends. We were riding down the street on Pacific Coast Highway, and Jermaine had just bought a brand new 6.9 Mercedes. And he was like, Marcus, this is the fastest car. I was in the front seat, Kevin was in the back seat, Jermaine was driving. He said, this is the fastest car, four-door sedan in the world. And he's riding, da-da-da-da. All of a sudden, the police pull us over. So when the police pull us over, I'm sitting in the front seat, and I'm just thinking that the guy's going to give Jermaine a ticket, and we'll leave. And so Jermaine gets out of the car, and Kevin and I are sitting there, and we're just talking. I'm looking forward. We're talking. But I happen to turn around, and the guy's twisting Jermaine's arm behind his back, and Jermaine is screaming. So I jump out of the car, and I go, what the fuck you doing? And the cop pulls his gun, and he goes, Jermaine says, Marcus, get back in the car, get back in the car. I was like, no, fuck that cracker. I'm just telling you, I was militant. I was like, fuck, shoot me, because I felt like, I shouldn't say this, but I felt like my life really wasn't worth it. I felt like, you know, I'm from the projects. This is Jermaine Jackson. You know, come on. If I get killed, living with Flip, hanging out with the Jackson 5, then kill me, shoot me, cracker, shoot me. But he got scared. The cop knew that he had bargained for too much, and he didn't pull the trigger. He didn't. He put Jermaine in the car, and he kept pointing his gun at me. I was like, shoot me, shoot me, shoot me. So now he takes Jermaine. I didn't know what to do. The only thing is, you know, they had payphones at the time because I couldn't drive Jermaine's car. I didn't have I was too young. So I called Hazel, and Hazel was pregnant with Autumn, and I called Hazel, and she said, what happened? And I told her everything that happened, and then she said, give me the number where you at. I gave her the number, and then she said, wait right there. Someone's going to call you. And so I'm sitting there waiting, and who calls? Barry Gordy. He goes, this is Mr. Gordy. Tell me what happened. And I said, the cop took him, and he was twisting his arm and choking him. This happened in 1970. This was 70, I don't know, 75, I think. He goes, you're kidding. I go, no. And so I said to Hazel, and she says, okay, Marcus, I'm going to jump in the taxi and come and get you and Kevin. And she jumps in the car and she drives back to the house. And then when I get to the house, when we pull up to the house, Jermaine is in the house. Barry Gordy had already dispatched a lawyer from Malibu and went down there and got Jermaine out before we even got back home. And I was like, God damn, man, how can you use a lawyer like that? You know, and then it was Miss Jackson for the first time came to me and said, I can't believe you did what you did for my son. And then Michael came up to me and he was looking at me and he said, Marcus, he would have killed you. And I was like, so? Some things you have to die for. And that's really how we became the best of friends. That was the cementing point. And Jermaine even told me, he said, you know, Marcus, when I first met you, I didn't even like you. But what you did with that cop, with that gun, he goes, and if you don't believe me, ask him. When you run into him, ask him. He'll tell you. He ain't gonna lie. He said, from outside of my brothers, you and Kevin are the closest to me. And that's how we really became friends. And from that day on, we hung out every day. Every day we wake up, and that was it. So I incurred a lot of racism with those boys and with Mr. Wilson. There's a lot more stories to tell, but I really wanted to tell that guy, he was choking, he had Jermaine in a chokehold and twisting his arm behind his back at the same time. Jermaine, the bass player. Come on, they've been doing it for years. The only difference is now everybody knows it. That's it. But I will say this, the thing about America, think about this. In the history of the world, you will never see a Jew elected to rule over Arabs or vice versa. You will never see a Japanese elected to rule over Chinese, or China to elected to rule over Japanese. You will never see an Indian elected to rule over Pakistan, or vice versa. You will never see an Armenian elected to rule over Turks, or vice versa. But in the short period in the human race, we were able to elect a Black president. That says something about this country. That's a beautiful thing, because we are a forgiving race. We really are a forgiving race, and that's what I love about being who we are. We're strong, very strong, but we're so forgiving. And the strength of Black America is the Black woman. And I get into, I got into a lot of conversations with Black men telling them we're doing ourselves a disservice by demoralizing them, calling them all these bad names. So any other questions? I'm sorry. I see you moving, so I know you got another question. So.
It's all good. We could definitely go on for many more hours, Marcus. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We typically end around 1 o'clock in an hour, and I know we started late, so that kind of puts us at this 1 hour mark. I want to thank you so much for sharing such amazing stories. You are a very gifted and talented storyteller. If you read some of these comments, people could visualize everything that you were talking. It's absolutely fantastic. But I think you ended it beautifully by talking about what a powerful race Black people are, and the power really stands with the Black woman. And so thank you so much for your time and for your stories, and to share.
Can I tell you just one more story? Just one more.
A quick one.
Okay. It's quick. We were going to we were going to go to the Renaissance Fair, and Michael wanted to go, Michael Jackson. And we were going to go to the Renaissance Fair. And so my pops told Mike, he said, you can go, but you got to get permission from your mom and dad. And so Michael called his mom, and she said, let me ask Joe. And then Joe said, yeah, tell Flip that if he wants Michael to go, he got to get security. And so Pops said, I told Pops what Mr. Jackson said, and Pops said, what? He goes, listen, we go to the fair. People gonna see, yeah, it's Michael Jackson. They're gonna be, some girls gonna be, yeah. But when they see me, it's all over. So he said, tell Miss Jackson, tell Mr. Jackson, I'm sorry, I appreciate everything, but I would love for Michael to go with us, but I'm not gonna get security. So something happened back and forth, and Miss Catherine, she talked to him, and then finally Joseph said, you can go. So Michael didn't have any clothes, but I had all these clothes that Pops had just bought. So I said, Mike, here, wear my pants. He wore my pants, my shirt, and my hat. Michael Jackson wearing my stuff. So anyway, we get in the limo, and we get there, and when we get out of the car, Pops is talking with the driver, and we got out first. So we get out, and we're walking around, and you see the little girls, oh, this is Michael Jackson. Right? So Pops gets out of the car, and he comes and he joins us. And this woman comes in. She's a white woman. Oh my God, it's Flip, it's Flip. And I kid you not, she runs up to Michael, gives her camera. I need you to take a picture of me and Flip. And Michael's sitting there with the camera. She said, young man, just hit the button. It's me and Flip. Just point it. Look, you see us? Yeah. Can you take the picture? Mike takes the picture. I'll never forget that long as I live. That was the funniest thing. So anyway, that's it. I'm sorry, Tiffany. I took a lot of your time. Look at you. I didn't know you're tired.
No,
I can go on for days and days talking about race. I know I didn't really touch on race. I really talked about where I should have got more in depth about race itself. But I just wanted to tell you where I came from, the racism that I saw, the racism that I encountered, and how I encountered it. So,
Appreciate it.
So fantastic. So what I'd love to do, though, is to...
Dwayne seems like he has a question. Dwayne, you has a question?
May I ask how old are you, Marcus?
I'll be 60.
Okay.
November 1st, I'll be 60 years old.
All right, congratulations. So
thank you.
I only lived in Florida for a few years, from 74 to 78. I was over in St. Pete. So I figured you were a couple of years older than some of the stories you were talking about, especially, you know, Jermaine's car in 75 or something like this. But I can only imagine the racism you went through in South Florida. It was funny because when you called that cop a cracker, I'm like, oh, I know exactly where that's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
What was it
Go
like?
ahead.
Seriously, what was it like as a black kid going around Florida, South Florida?
It was different because we were sequestered.
I heard that
We
part.
didn't really intermingle. It wasn't until I got into high school, but at that time I was with Mr. Wilson.
Okay.
And I used to fly from California. I was bi-coastal. Every weekend I would fly from California to Florida.
Okay.
And so I had to leave the schools in Florida. So I had a lot of racism that I encountered, but again, you just look at people and you just walk away from it. You know, intelligence, they're just ignorant. You know, ignorance is one who does not know. They just don't understand what life was about. I had a lot more to live for, and I had a lot more shoulders to stand on, and I was responsible for my actions. It wasn't like I could do something and it was just me. It was always, oh, that's Flip's kid, and whatever I did, it went with him. Even when I was in the military, I encountered some racism there. I told you about it, but I had another one where I was the only airman driving a Volvo. Pops bought me a Volvo while I was there. And there was just so much jealousy. It was just ridiculous. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, I can't believe all you guys are tripping because of a car. So it's everywhere. You have to deal with it because you're going to always have people that feel disenfranchised from life. And they're going to want to blame somebody. And racism is an easy target.
Well, I've lived all over. I've lived all over. I was actually born in San Diego, so I was picturing school in California would have been much more diverse, probably much more accepting, except for the LA Police Department.
Well, the LA Police Department, the good thing about it is that they knew who Pops was, and so they never really, and Pops got arrested one time too for marijuana, and he went through lawyers, and it's different when you have money to combat these guys, and they know that.
Yeah.
But again, for the most part, they were very kind to us. Very, very kind to us.
Amazing
So
story, buddy.
we
Amazing story,
benefited.
amazing life.
Yeah. Thank you. It was truly, truly to live in the projects one day, wake up in Malibu the next day, in a $3 million beach home. That was huge for me. And it's still to this day, I'm still trying to grapple with it.
I was going to say, I've got to believe you spent a lot of time thinking about, hell, how would my life have been if I had actually just been a black man back down there?
Oh, yeah. All my friends, all of them are either dead, in jail, incarcerated. All of them.
Last week, I was talking about the psychology of poverty and how growing up here in America, whites want to see social issues as racial problems, but having lived in a very white country and seen almost all parts of America, it's really about the psychology of poverty. It's people that feel oppressed. It's people that are annoyed with all of that. They want to rise up. They want to feel equal somehow, but they know that they're not treated that way. So it creates anger. I just found it very interesting.
Well, I've been around the world, and I've been to a lot of places that, one of the poorest places I've ever been to was in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, and I've seen what people will do for drugs, but you cannot imagine what someone would do for hunger.
Yeah, it's tragic.
Yeah.
You look at what happened to Native Americans. I've been married, we're coming up on our 31st anniversary. My father-in-law, being a Scottish guy, he was very intrigued by the Native Americans, and anytime they were playing cops and robbers, not cops and robbers, but cowboys and Indians, he was always the Indian, right? So we got married in end of October, but he and my mother-in-law came out the following summer, and we took a big trip up north, and he wanted to see all kinds of different aspects of American history, American West history, but we also went to several of the Native American reservations. And again, the amount of drug abuse, the amount of substance abuse, the amount of domestic violence, the amount of crime and whatnot is horrific, because essentially they have a sense of hopelessness, despair.
Well, whenever you rip a people, one thing I learned as a black man is whenever you rip a history away from a person, it's like a rudderless ship, you know, with no direction. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the same thing that happened to a lot of slaves. They came with you know, the history was ripped away from them. So, you know, I mean, Black Americans is, you know, you're Black without the privilege. I mean, you know, you're Black without the history, and you're American without the privilege. So I understand what it is, what it's about. And, but we can all combat that. We just have to educate each other. And the first way is we have to start appreciating who we are. And once we get to that point where we can appreciate who we are, then we can go out and start appreciating others. And that's really where it starts. Change your view and your world will change.
Right. I think people have to develop that sense of purpose, that sense of you know, the goals, that motivation, all that type of internal stuff, instead of saying that everything's up against me. But then on the other side of the equation, we have to be able to educate the white folk about history, because that they want to forget it. They want to act like it didn't happen. They want to act like everybody should be past it, and that you should have been able to rise above it by now. And that's just bullshit. It just is. There's too many things still in the way, and there's too many people still wishing to go backwards in time. I think
you just want to go back and take the things that, you know, the things that we can use, you know, because history teaches you. So you want to go back and take those lessons to use in the future to combat the issues. It's funny how history just repeats itself. It's crazy. You would think that people would remember, but they don't. So you have to be a voice. You have to decide whether you're going to be. You're going to be the guy that's going to help change history, make history. You know, the thing about teachers, every good leader, every one of them had a great teacher. And a good teacher will tell you a story. A better teacher will demonstrate a story. But the best teacher will inspire the story in you. And that's really what you need. Everybody needs to be inspired. Everybody needs to be shown. Don't just be lip talk. I mean, I carry shoes, food, and clothes in my car. I shouldn't say food, but money for food. But I see people with no shoes. I either give them my shoes or I buy shoes for them. I do it all the time. I do it a lot now, but it's just part of life.